Say You're Sorry is the beginning of a new series, the Sacramento series. If you love characters with books with a lot of complicated plotting, a lot of police procedural, we have FBI agents, we have Sacramento PD, there's morgue scene. I always like a good morgue scene. There's so many scenes to make your heart go pitter pat. There is an absolutely amazing, wonderful therapy dog, Brutus, which reminds me so much of my own dog. At home, I pined reading the novel. But then these fabulous cast of characters. Karen, to me, writes those kinds of books that when you're actually done, you're sad because you want to go back and just spend more time with these people. Which is why it's so excellent that the Say You're Sorry, which also has one of my favorite villains, I have to say, you almost feel for him. I mean, he's awful. He's truly awful. I want the record to show she's more violent or vicious or something than I am. We can have that competition later. Which one of us is more dangerous?
Who's killed the most people on here?
Oh, I don't know. Say You're Sorry is pretty darn good for body count in some inventive ways. But the killer has purpose and a moral code. So again, the characters are complicated, they're very interesting, and it's the beginning of a great new series. So since I got to start, I get to ask you the first question.
Okay.
So, what made you set the book in Sacramento? Because you're like in Florida. What inspired it?
Well, each of my books has been set in a city that I've either lived in or visited a lot. And I write with a group of authors that mostly live on the West Coast. And I have recently made a very good friend with an author who lives in Sacramento, and we knit together. So yes, I've actually returned to knitting because of knitting in her books. And so when I emailed her saying I probably funded your children's college education because I bought so many of your books, because I was reading them in the hospital when my uncle, who was kind of like a surrogate dad, was dying. And so I just was glomming onto these books, and so we met. She lives in Sacramento, and I have been visiting there a lot. There's an amazing yarn store, so we always go to the yarn store. And I like to pick cities that they're big enough to get lost in.
Yeah.
They're big enough to have a police department where you could work your whole career and not know someone and then meet them a little bit later.
Sure.
But also not with a feel that has not with a feel that is like to New York or LA.
What I got from it from Sacramento, and I've never lived in California at all, but it reminded me a little bit about Boston in that there's distinct areas and neighborhoods, so you can get a sense of movement and feel. And that's what I've always loved studying books in Boston.
Yes.
Is depending on exactly where in Boston, it is a whole different.
It's a different experience.
A different experience.
It's a different experience.
So you can make your characters have a sense of movement a lot,
Yes.
but you're still in the same city.
So I picked Sacramento because I wanted to do something on the West Coast.
Gotcha.
And furthest west I've been up to that point was Minneapolis. And then the weather it's got interesting weather as well. It can get really super hot in the summer. But the book also is set near the Mount Shasta area where it's very remote, very,
Yes.
So I could, there's snow and ice and stuff you could play with there.
You use these elements well. So the premise of Say You're Sorry, which is extremely well done, is our main character, Daisy, is attacked in the opening. And she manages to fight off the attacker, and in doing so grabs this locket from him, which turns out to be a connection to a cold case, an old case, and frankly, a cult. So it's interesting because now we have two things going on. We have this investigation that's very personal to the male FBI agent involving, he was once a member of this cult that used the remote areas around Mount Shasta, had a very much kind of going back to the basics, anti-government, take care, survivalist bent. But then we also have this very slick urban killer who is very sophisticated, who is now extremely unhappy that Daisy took his favorite locket and is determined to make everyone say they're sorry.
Yes.
That's
right.
But I like that you use both locations very well and that they're so close together. There's not very many areas of the country you can do that kind of trick.
And that's one of the things I love about that area, because where I live in Florida, and I've never set one in Florida, but I live in a neighborhood, it's a suburban neighborhood, but you go 5 miles out and it's country.
Yeah.
You go 10 miles out and it's swamp, where there are alligators. Then I had an electrician in my house once, and I was talking to my husband about the book I was writing. He goes, if you want to hide a body, take it to Myakka State Park, because you can throw it in the quicksand and the gators will eat it. And I'm thinking, and he's like he knew. And I'm backing away from that electrician. But there is quicksand, you know, and it is a real thing. So you have a city, and so I might set something there too. But I like it where I can play with the elements a little bit.
Well, so this is the first trick you're gonna learn now, clearly about authors. So you're in Florida, and you're setting your books out in California. I live in New Hampshire, and Flora Dane, between Find Her, what is it, Look for Me, Never Tell, spends all her time with Jacob Ness, her kidnapper in the South, who's always threatening to feed her to the gators. So apparently we just don't write about where we live. We want to write about other people's horrors, not our own.
Right.
Because you think all my books would have bears in them, but because we live with them, we don't think anything of them. I've never noticed when I see a bear, but gators would terrify me. So
Bears would terrify me. We have a gator that lives in the pond at the end of our cul-de-sac.
Well, that's how I feel about the bears.
It's just kind of cool until, you know, they get stroppy and the pond goes down. This happened last summer. The gator left the pond, and it happened on I didn't know it was my street. I saw this on the news. He walks up the street, and then he actually gets into somebody's lanai through the screen and just goes swimming laps in their pool. And they go out for an evening swim, and there's a gator in their pool.
See, I would take the bear. We do get bears. They break in all the time. They're very skilled. They like to break into cars too, and they'll destroy the interior if the door closes behind them.
Oh, right.
And they can't get back out. So, I mean, don't leave food in your car. I can tell you that. But see, now that I'm never going to use. But the feeding, the quicksand, feeding the body to gators. See, I like that.
It works. It works. It's a very effective way to get rid of a body.
So Never Tell for me picks up Detective Dee Dee Warren and Flora Dane. Okay, you go. You go.
Okay, so Never Tell is, which book is this for you? How many books?
I don't count them.
Oh, see, I do, because it's the file, the name of the file.
Oh, I use it alphabet letters. Oh, sorry. And there's been some that didn't make it, so we can't even use straight math.
Last night, the woman who ran the store last night informed her that it was her 10th Dee Dee Warren.
I'm going with that.
No.
We're gonna say it's number 10.
So, okay, so it's her 10th Dee Dee Warren. And Dee Dee Warren is a workaholic detective. And you meet her, obviously you've met her 9 previous times.
Working.
And I love that about this series, because I haven't read all 10 of them, but I know I've read at least 5.
Okay.
And you see Dee Dee from where she starts, and she gets a relationship, and then she gets married, and then she has a child, and you kind of get to watch her and her own personal growth arc, and I really like that.
Yeah.
And it's something I have not done. I mean, I've done it with characters as secondary characters,
Yeah.
but it's really neat to see a main character grow like that over several books, and it still stays fresh.
Yes.
And one of the ways that you do that, I think, is you're constantly bringing in new characters.
Yes.
So this book has Dee Dee Warren. It also has Flora Dane, which we've met before. And I liked her character. I really when I liked her character in this book, but I liked her before. And then there's a new character, and this new character, and I have to be careful because I'm gonna spoil anything. It's interesting how this book is written, because I've never written in first person, and I've never written present tense. So my mind doesn't go that way, but she's got 3 main points of view. So three points of view in this book. There's Dee Dee, who's third person, and then Flora and Evie, who is one of the new character, and they're both first person, present tense.
Yes.
So like, you know, I see him, not like she saw him, I see him, and it gives you a very sense of urgency in being in the present, and I like that. One of the things, though, that's really interesting is that Evie has killed her father 16 years before in an accident. It's an accidental killing. And and the book opens with her husband dead, and she's holding the gun. Then the cops come. And so Dee Dee has a very personal connection to this case because she investigated the death 16 years ago. And so she's picked this one up too. And so she's like, an accident happened twice. and it's one of the things that is really cool about this book is that you don't know. You're in her head, you're in Evie's head, and you don't know. You know? You don't know you know what she thinks has happened in several places, but you don't know and she never gives anything away. there's never anything given away in the Evie scenes, and
I believe in that New England reserve. My characters are very New England reserve.
I mean, mine, and if it was in their point of view, they would have like spilled everything on page 2. But the novel has a very urgent presence because of that, because you're in their heads and you really are in their heads. So, but yeah, I really did enjoy that. And why did you pick the third person and the first person? Why did you do that?
Yeah, so I was saying this is one of those things I feel like if I were quote unquote a real author, I would have a real answer for you, but I don't. I've always written, when I first started out writing books, they were always third person. She said, he said, the traditional. And then many, many years ago, I think when I started Dee Dee Warren, it became clear was it going to become a series. Or I kept coming up with new ideas for her because we've established Karen plans. Like this is the beginning of a series. The series is planned. I can't even plan to brush my teeth most days, apparently. So Dee Dee just kind of happened. And I needed something else to balance it. So what was the news story? And for whatever reason, that always comes to me as kind of a narrator talking to you. This is what happened to me, and I'm in trouble and I need help, and that kind of sets the stage. So Evie Carter, like we meet her, she's just come home, she's dreading it, something's very wrong with the marriage, she's pregnant, but you just know something's very wrong, and then she finds her husband's body, and then what my publisher likes for whatever reason is, and then she turns around and shoots like the computer 12 times, and they're like, she should at least have checked to see if he was dead. I'm like, no, she just wanted the computer dead.
I think he was pretty dead.
Yeah, he was pretty dead.
I don't think he'd come back from a wound like that.
Yeah. And then it was fun because I got to take her to jail and all sorts of. So I do a lot of research for my books. You guys have gotten to hear me talk, and you know that I really like doing that. So for Never Tell, it was everything from, she does get arrested. She's found holding a smoking gun. You do